Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Pick Six podcast. I am your host, DPZ, and with me is my good buddy Drake Magruder at Drakes_PC, and we're here to talk to you about sports cards. Once again, I am coming live from the University of Washington in Seattle, finishing up my master's, and Drake is coming from his home. Usually it's flip-flopped. He's usually in some hotel room, and I'm in a dorm this time, so I'm squeezing this in between classes. So hopefully doesn't sound too rushed, but Drake, good to see you today, bud.
Yeah, man, it's great to see you after last week. We had a week off because I was traveling last week. It seems like we're trying to cram these things in, but it's always fun to take a little break from the day to day and just have a chance to talk to hobby and sports cards and things like that. And I'm wearing my Razorback stuff today. The Hogs kick off their college football season tonight against Arkansas Pine Bluff. We certainly saw some craziness last week with Florida State and Georgia Tech, but there's a huge slate of games that's coming up this weekend for Labor Day, as there usually is. So I'm excited for the long weekend. Excited for college football starting up. We got pro football starting up next week as well too. So it's an exciting time of year.
Good stuff. So we're gonna just maybe let's launch right into the program here. We got a few questions, a few things to talk about. So why don't you kick us off there, Drake?
Yeah, sounds good. The first thing I did want to say is I actually do have a mail day real quick.
Okay, fire away.
That I'm going to share. So this is Hulk Hogan, obviously Gold Prism, as everybody knows. I love the Gold Prism. So this is the 2024 Panini Prism WWE Gold Prism of Hulk Hogan. So this completes my run of the year. So Prism and WWE started in 2022. They have it in 23 and then 24. So the license moves over to Fanatics and Topps next year. So it's kind of crazy. I was thinking about it this morning about how, whatever wrestler you collect, there's only like 3 years of it. So there's only 30 copies of the Gold Prisms. And so that's kind of neat to me because when you break it down and it's like, hey, you got one from each year, that's 3 of the 30. That's 10% of the total population, which just seems kind of wild. So we're certainly excited to get that in to complete the run. So
great. I guess if we're doing that, I'll present. I don't have it with me, obviously, but I can show you what I picked up. And I took advantage of Nick. And is this allowing me to do it? Okay. Select tab to share. Tiger screen, tab. No, that's not it. Chrome tab. How about that one? Well, it's not letting me do it, but I'll just let you know anyway. I picked up a 1998 EX 2001 Central Credentials Futures Derek Jeter PSA 9. That's my latest pickup, so it matches up nicely with my Ken Griffey Jr. of the same year, same card, PSA 9. I believe it is out of – what is it out of? It is out of 94, so it's a little more accessible card, but it doesn't sell that much. It's only sold, it looks like at least publicly, it has sold 6 or 7 times in the last 9 or 10 years. So that's not that much. I feel like it's a fairly rare card. Doesn't move a lot. I don't know if you're going to see a lot more of them because of the 90s market is. People are thinking it's possibly a bubble or a pump. I don't think it is, based off of a lot of my research, and I've been diving headfirst into these cards, listening to a lot of different podcasts, getting everybody else's takes on it. It doesn't look like it's a bubble. Your Peyton Manning PSA 10 PMG 100, that doesn't seem that's definitely not something that's going to keep happening. I don't think that goes up, but that's sort of an aberration, isolated event. But for the most part, you're seeing a lot of those really premier cards of high-profile players, relevant players, increase in value in some of those greater sets. And we're going to talk about some of that today a little bit later on.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to think about, right? So first of all, congrats on the purchase on the credentials. And I think it's unique how different players in different sports and things like that, some of them, the now is more rare than the future. And then you swap it. In some cases, the future is more rare than the now. But certainly, it's an interesting thing to think about because we see the Peyton Manning sell PMG PSA 10 for $100,000, and it's like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. And it was about 2.5 times more than the last sale from a couple years ago, which seems just insane, right? But then, and this is something that I did way back years ago, is it's like, and a lot of times things operate in a vacuum, but you see some of the prices that people are paying for these ultra modern stars today. And it just really makes you scratch your head, and you're just like, man, like, what does this person have to do over time to sustain that pricing? Right. So like, just one thing that comes to mind. So last week when I was I had a chance to see the Pirates play. And it just so happened night one, which was the only night I got to see him play, Skeens was the pitcher for the Pirates. And guy was phenomenal. I mean, he threw like 2 hits, 0 earned runs. He threw, I think, five innings pitched. I mean, just phenomenal pitcher. And I was looking at like what his highest selling cards were. And one of them was like 80 something thousand. One was 60 something thousand. And then you go and look at like what the highest selling cards were, are for name your favorite pitcher, like Nolan Ryan or Justin Verlander, Mariano Rivera, just people like that. And I'm like, their highest sales pale in comparison to that. And so it's interesting to me the way we think about sales and how, sometimes certain things kind of blow your mind, but then you look at them compared to other current stars and then vice versa. And it kind of tells a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, I mean, he could be the next guy, right? So I think a lot of people are looking at that. So there's nothing wrong with going there. I mean, I'd be a bit more careful about the modern cards, but we teach their own. Whatever they want to collect, whatever they want to buy, I can't say one way or another. But I feel more comfortable where I'm at and where I'm buying and what I'm collecting, because I feel like those people are already done playing, and the cards already have their provenance and relevancy within the hobby. And I know there's a massive niche community. I don't even know if you call it a niche community anymore. It's just a big community of people our age that are flighting. There's this flight to quality, and they're heading that direction, in my opinion. So I'm very bullish on that, not from an investment standpoint per se all the way, but just I feel like it's a safer place if you're going to spend a little bit more money on a card. So anyway, what do we got? What do we want to talk about today? What do you want to start off with?
Well, I think we need to start off with a question you asked me at the end of our last episode from a couple weeks ago. You said, Drake, what are your top 3 90s, whether parallels, insert, whatever? And I did a lot of thinking about it. And it sounds kind of like a chalk answer, but the more I looked at my cards, and you got to remember that I'm solely like 1998, 99, right? That's my exposure, like with Peyton Manning. So certain cards like the Playmakers Theater, some of these like certified sets from the 96 are beautiful cards, but I just don't own any of them. I'm not around them, so it's tough for me to jump in and say like, wow, that like this would trump my top 3. But just based on the cards that I own and the cards that I'm exposed to, like it's like this is my top 3. So number 1 is Credentials. I just love the design of that. I love the acetate, how you see through it, just the colors used. I mean, screams 90s, great design.
What year?
What's that?
What year?
Oh, sorry. For me, it's the 1998 for sure. Yep. And then number 2 is the 24 karat, which in football was only in 1998. I just love the shine on those cards. 24 karat gold, it just shines like no other. I think the photography on them is great. I love that it's just a 1-year product. So it's just a one and done kind of thing. There's only 24 copies. They're super hard to find, and that whole sort of thing. And then for number 3, I kind of went back and forth a little bit of is it rubies or is it PMG? And I'll say I settled on the rubies there because of the rarity difference. So the PMGs are out of 50, at least in football. And again, I'm just referencing football. Whereas the rubies, like Peyton's rookie, is out of 35 and 98. His second year is out of 30. But I just think they're gorgeous cards. I certainly like the design of the 99. They call it the Shining Star rubies with the little stars in them and things like that. I think that pops a little bit more than the 98s, at least for Peyton. But I think from a design standpoint, I think the 97 looks the best of the 3 from 97, 98, 99. So that was kind of my little thought experiment that I did, and kind of looking at what I'm exposed to, which once again is just football, and it's the 98 and 99. So that's me.
Okay, good. Interesting. The PMGs didn't make the top 3. I think this top 3 makes it fun because you have to leave one of the bigger sets out. You have to think hard about which one you think is going to be more meaningful at the end of the day. I'll give you my top three. So number one, I believe, and this is also what I believe right now, and what I believe will be the premier set in the future, is the 24 karat gold 99 Fleer Brilliance set. 1 year set out of 24. Is it out of 24 every card for basketball and football too?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think it's all out of 24. Yeah, so I'm fairly confident. You have a lot of the major athletes, major players: Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. I mean, you've got all the major basketball players except for Jordan. Most of the major baseball players: Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., Derek Jeter. It just covers so many of the major. It covers all three sports. So you have that, number one. It's the card itself. It's probably the best looking card, in my opinion, that's ever been created. Period. Hands down. I mean, Raise the Roofs look pretty cool. There's some really amazing refracting technology and refractor tech that has been out there, that has been introduced into the hobby throughout. But black finite, super fractors, and there's a lot of really cool patterns. But this card is just it's second to none, and I think everybody's going to realize that. 1 year release. Out of 24, it's got everything going for it. A lot of the three sports, all the major athletes. So I think that's the number one set. I think that'll be the most coveted set. It's almost, you're already priced out of. I mean, I'm glad to have a Bonds. I will not be able to afford another athlete of stature, prominence, relevancy in the hobby. There's no way. So I'm kind of already been like, yep, at least I got one. And I think that a lot of folks are going to start saying, at least I got one. You can still get a lot of different players at very, very affordable prices. Players that maybe are like second, third tier Hall of Famers. There's still good entry points for that set. I'm really, really bullish on that set. I think it's just, again, a lot of times it's what people tell you, and you kind of get influenced by the set. When you hold that card in your hand, you don't need anyone to tell you anything. You just look at that and look at the rest of your cards and go, this is just way better looking than anything else I have. Unless you have a really crappy pose by the player on the card, which hopefully you don't. It is a sight to behold. So that's number one. Number two, Essential Credentials 1998. I will say Futures End now, only because if you do the math, there's just not that many of them in 1998 for Future End now. And now is sometimes, basketball, a lot of times it now has lesser print run, and in baseball as well. But in football, it's just the opposite. It just varies so much. There's so much nuance with that set. I'm gonna be a little lazy and put the Futures End nows in there. The nows on certain players that are like the Brett Favre out of 4. I think the Barry Bonds out of 2. The Griffey out of, I forget what that is out of, but those are all very, very expensive cards, very sought after. So I think that's like a top tier cream of the cream, cream of the crop type of set. Especially with the premier players in our hobby, the most collectible players in our hobby. So huge set. I don't feel like Spinatron has cornered that market for all of those cards. I think he has almost all of them that were ever made. So kind of frustrates all of us because he's rich in cards when it comes to EC now as in futures, but good for him. And my third set, I didn't go rubies only because I feel like there's too much. Is it the earlier? There's multiple years. There's just as many years as PMGs, but I feel like there's a bigger distinction between the years of what is more desirable, right? So I went with PMG, and I didn't just go with any year PMG. I went with 1998 PMG. The super cream of the crop set will be 97 greens. That's like up there with the nows. So, but not everybody can afford those cards, right? So if you're looking at a card that'll be more affordable, that people could probably own in the future or still get now and still have in the future, your 97 reds and your 98s. 98s, I think, look better than the two as far as aesthetics. They look better. But the 97s are like the first year. I just feel like with the green, because of the green, 97 is going to take the cake. 98 will come second. 99, it literally goes throughout the year. I know they're out of 50, 98, so there's less of them, but I don't know. I just feel like that green, because the green exists in the 97 offering, it's going to be the top 3. And then it'll bring reds along with it because they kind of go together. And people like the parallels, right? People like the parallels more than the inserts most of the time. That drives the hobby. The Flair Brilliance is a parallel. The Essential Credentials is a parallel. So when you have it be a parallel, I feel like it adds even more to it. So yeah, there's no inserts in this top three sets. Again, 24 karat gold, 99, 1 year, all three sports. Essential Credentials, Future and Now, 98, all three sports, and 97 PMGs. Not all three sports, but I believe because basketball and football are so popular, especially basketball, it just carries that market. Jordan and Kobe and some of these they just carry that set. I mean, that Jordan card's probably going to go down as the 52 mantle, the green PMG. I mean, it's in that set, so I think it just takes that set to another level. So,
yep, agreed. No, it's good stuff. I love it. I love it a lot.
Yeah.
So kind of on to topics, and I want to share kind of like a personal story and just kind of just some advice, lessons learned, and things like that. So, when I was at the National, I gave some cards to my subber, who is DT Sports Cards. And the reason I brought them to him, well, first of all, because I knew I was going to see him there. Second of all, I hate putting cards in the mail. I hate shipping cards. And so I gave him some cards there. He sent them to PSA, got the grades, things like that. Super excited. He gets them back. And then he goes to ship them to me. And he ships them to me USPS priority. He creates the label on August the 16th. It gets scanned into his post office on August the 17th. There's not another scan until August 21st. And that scan just says it's moving through the network, arriving late. And there was no other scan after that. And I went out and I'm looking and I'm calling my post office, calling customer service. They have no idea where the package is. And so I went onto the USPS website and filed a missing mail search on Monday of this week. And on Tuesday morning, I got up and saw that it was rescanned again or scanned again in Little Rock. And it just showed up to me this morning when my mail came. So was certainly relieved there. I was sweating things out for quite a while because, again, he had shipped it USPS priority, insured with signature confirmation. Typically, when he sends it to me, it takes about 3 days, if that. And so wasn't expecting it to take a couple weeks. So certainly sweating it out because I had some cards in there that, yes, the cards were insured. And so, I had that to fall back on. He had that to fall back on. But at the end of the day, I mean, I wanted those cards. And so I would have been devastated if I had not gotten those back. So we're certainly glad that it showed up today. But just kind of wanted to share that story just as a call out to folks is that, if you have the opportunity to deliver cards in person for, whether it's to your group subber, whether it's to be subbed yourself, certainly take advantage of that. And then also when you ship anything, use the signature confirmation. Make sure your package is insured. If you're not crazy about insuring it because they can see the value and all that sort of stuff, spend a little bit of extra money to overnight it. Whether it's FedEx overnight, UPS overnight, USPS, like whatever you think. And make sure that you do have insurance on your collection if you do send stuff to be graded, because it certainly gives you something to fall back on. We all want our cards, but certainly need to have that safety net there in case. And then the last thing I'll say is my mail carrier was telling me that the USPS, the postmaster right now, they're in this huge looking at numbers. And she said that the postmaster is not a postal service person. It's somebody who came from outside business. And so he's looking at just the numbers. And so what she was telling me is that they're in the process of closing down several sort facilities and things like that. So, just this week I saw pictures where people were sending some photos of some sort facilities with packages just piled from floor to ceiling. And people were like, man, that's crazy. Well, from what I understand, because of the cost-cutting measures and because they're trying to look out for the bottom line of the USPS, that stuff's going to continue. And packages are going to take longer to get from point A to point B. So, it's not going to improve. So just wanted to share that with some folks. Number one, just to give you some comfort in case, you do have a package that's taking a little bit longer. Don't freak out. It's still likely going to get there. But also, if you're shipping the high value cards, make sure you insure, make sure you use signature, and certainly use express methods as well. So just kind of a rant, I'll say, but I did just want to share that story with some folks. So
yeah,
FedEx or anything?
Yeah, use FedEx overnight. Signature confirmation. Simple. Yep. I don't use USPS anymore.
Yep.
Not for anything that's worth anything. And do it overnight, signature comp. Even when I send stuff to PSA of high value, I do that. I might reach out to someone at PSA that I know as I've developed some relationships there. And I'm like, hey, this is coming in. Could you look for it? They're awesome. They always do. At least for me, and I'm not like this big hobby influencer guy. So got like 900 followers. I'm not important at all, but they still take the time to listen and help you out. So that just be smart. I'd use FedEx is great. So FedEx.
Well, it actually shipped some cards FedEx overnight this week. And I think one destination it was like $35. The other one it was like $45. So at the end of the day, it's like, man, I'd rather spend $10 versus $35 or $45, but at least you have that guarantee that it's going to get there and it's going to arrive safely. So
cool.
Anyways, well, we had spoken a little bit earlier around a 90s bubble, and are we in a 90s bubble, or is this just a flight to quality? For those of us that maybe have 90s cards or maybe are looking to get into 90s cards, is now the right time? Are you missing the boat if you continue to wait? Should you wait? Should you jump in now? So what are your thoughts, DPZ?
No, I think we should end the show on this topic. It's a great topic. We kind of started it talking about it. I don't ever think you should have this FOMO attitude and jump in now. And because here's what's happening. I think a lot of these cards are selling, and what it's doing is bringing some of these cards out of the woodwork. So some people are seeing some of these cards sell again, like my David Robinson PMG Red that I sold a while back, and then someone bought it. They're selling it again. So people are kind of taking notice of like, hey, these cards are starting to sell for advanced pricing, and it's growing, and maybe this is the opportunity for me to offload some cards that I was underneath in because now the market's improving in that sector, and so now I'm going to take advantage of it. So I think cards are going to start popping up. Case in point, I bought that Barry Bonds Rubies at a 50, PSA 8. Now there's 3 PSA 8s for sale, and when I bought it, there was only 1. So those cards are going to start coming out. So I think you're going to have an opportunity to pick up some cards. And if you wait a little bit, you might have some, the ability to have a market saturation. Not too much because there's not a lot of these cards. So you're never going to see it like a PSA 10 market for base cards, right? That won't happen just because of the sheer limitation of cards. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled. If there's a player that you collect or someone you love, don't just go on there and just try to find anybody that's in that set, because that's not the way to do it. I would highly caution against that. And I've done that before. I'm guilty of that. And I kind of got myself out of it because I was just buying stuff that I thought, oh, hey, it's part of that set. And that's all I can. No, save that money and put it into something meaningful, something that you want to keep. I'm to the point now where I don't know what I'd sell to buy anything. So that's a great place to be. That means you have cards that are meaningful to you that you don't want to sell. And that means you're going to have to find different ways of getting a card if you want to get it. So be very, very specific on what you're looking at. Make sure it's going to be a meaningful purchase, a card or a set you love. Not what Drake and I say, not what anybody says. Just, go look and find, maybe go, if you can find them at a card shop. That's the problem. Card shops don't seem to have these cards. Right. You can get one, hold them in hand. You can kind of see what they look like and kind of go, oh, wow, this is amazing. I want to get another one. I had a Craig Biggio now for a little bit, and I had to move it to get the Jeter. But that was a card I kind of knew that might happen. But I wanted to just hold one for a minute. What does it feel like? What does this look like? I have the future, but I wanted to hold it now, and it was just so cool. The card is amazing. I can't imagine holding one of a player that's very collected, like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan or a Ken Griffey Jr. or even a Barry Bonds. That's a super rare card out of 2, right? But those cards are so cool. And it's not a hype machine thing with those cards. When you hold them in your hand, and you can appreciate it and go, wow, this is really cool. That's when you like it. And it's not because someone else thinks it's cool or because the value is great. So I just encourage you, if you can, get your hands on one. You can go to card shows. I know everybody goes to a lot of these card shows. So you probably have a chance to look at cards in that way, find those cards because they're going to be in those. Sometimes they're going to be in those cases. But yeah, that's what I would do. And of course, think about the player you like to collect, not just doing what everybody says. So again, I think I've said it 5 times, but I want to make sure it's very clear. This isn't a pump at all. I just love those cards. And I love the stories behind them. I love, the provenance of them, how some people buy them and all of a sudden, 10, 20 years later, like that one story that it wasn't one of those 90s cards, but that one guy bought it, was in a binder. I think Adam Gray had the story on it. He found it and he graded it. Now it's worth all this money. He just discovered it. It was like, oh my gosh, I pulled this out of a pack and now it's worth all this money. I'm going to auction it. That's really cool. I find those stories are really, really cool. Or like the Wilt Chamberlain, they found that card. I know it's not a 90s card, but a vintage card, but they found that card in the grocery store. Collect has a story on that. That's a really cool story. Those stories are what make the hobby so fun. And there's so many of them. So that's exciting stuff. That's my thought on them. I don't think it's a bubble. I think certain cards might be a little out in left field, like that Manning we talked about. But it all comes down to how bad a collector wants the card, right? And if that card doesn't come back up, then, because you see a PSA 10 98 PMGs for sale on Fanatics now for 150, right? People aren't stupid. They see that and go, wait a second, I have one. It has to make sense, right? But for the most part, I think a lot of these sales are true. I think the Favre sales are true. I think I know a handful of these people buying these cards too. So, and I know they're collectors.
Yep.
I will say that. At least I believe them to be very strong collectors based on everything I know about them. So I feel pretty good about it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I would say that I'm the same way too. I think you made a good point, and I just want to reiterate that is don't just go out there and say, well, just because this is a PMG or a Credential or a Rubies or a 24 karat, that I need to just blow a bunch of money on it because it's going to be worth more someday, right? You've got to make sure it's a player that you like, a player you collect, so on and so forth, because there is that feeling now where people are going and they're buying a bunch of these cards and they're trying to flip them because they're saying, hey, someone's going to try to complete the set, or somebody really wants the 24 karat, so this is my chance to make some money. Like you're seeing that in more of the ultra modern stuff where, you look through Instagram stories and there's a bunch of guys that are just buying black finite prisms because they're black finite prisms. They don't care anything about the player on the card or anything like that. They're just saying, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this one of one card for cheap in an auction or something, or I'm going to get it off somebody that needs some money, and then I'm going to go list it for 2 to 3x what I paid and try to make some money off of it. So I'd certainly say just be careful with that. And as I've said before, is understand, especially on these lower numbered cards, is educate yourself on who else is holding those cards, right? When it's hardcore collectors, right, that people don't have the paper hands and are going to send the card to the auction house and, things like that. Like look at what those hardcore collectors collect. And that's something that I did kind of, I'll say it wasn't anything I thought and, really figured it out. I kind of lucked my way into it, where I started to follow a lot of those like hardcore 90s collectors, and I saw what they were picking up and the stuff that they liked. And that inspired me to go and do some of the same type stuff. And maybe what they were picking up was basketball or baseball, and I just wanted football and Peyton and stuff like that. And so that really inspired me to kind of go after that. And so I think you're seeing a lot more people get inspired. And I'm purposely not using the word influence because you shouldn't be influenced, in how you spend your money. But if you're inspired by how you spend your money, I think that's a positive thing. And then the last thing I'll say is, and this can be a 90s or whatever, but don't be a prisoner to comps, right? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes some people look at like, man, this card last sold for X in 2022. It's 2024 now, and so I think it should sell for this. Like, if you truly educate yourself on these cards and understand like what they're really worth, it shouldn't matter what card ladder or the alt valuation or whatever it is may be. You should kind of know in your head like about what that card is worth. And I think that's an important thing, that it's like people forget how to think a little bit sometimes. And I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, and they just want to go to eBay or go to card ladder or go to alt and just see what the last one sold for and try to buy it for 90% of that, or pay 100% of the comp or something like that. And I think it's just important to kind of go with what, go with your feeling. And I'll use just a quick personal example. So I had a Peyton Manning exquisite shield out of 10. It had a little shield patch in it and a Reebok patch in it. And it was an auction last week in the Fanatics Collect Weekly auction. And it ended this past Sunday. It ended for $1,720 or something like that. And a guy came to me afterwards, and he actually had another one, and he wanted the copy, but he forgot to bid on it or whatever, went to sleep or something like that. And he goes, man, that's like a $2,500 plus card. Like, dang it, I wish I would have seen that. And I'm thinking in my head, well, I wish you would have seen it too, because then that's more money that I can get to pay off another card. Well, so then that card gets bought and paid for or whatever. Then it gets listed on the Fanatics Buy Now Marketplace. Well, he's frustrated because he's like, well, someone's trying to flip it and make money and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's just, unfortunately, in the hobby, that's just how it goes sometimes, right? Is somebody was at the right place at the right time. They made that buy. It's their prerogative to do what they want to with that card. But then if you think it's worth more than what it went for last time, you can't really like look at that and say, well, no, it's only worth that. You've got to have in your mind kind of what you think it's worth and kind of try to ignore that as much as you can. I know it's really, really hard, much easier said than done. But that's just a point that I wanted to make. So
yeah, and I think it's another thing to remember is look at the comps are okay to look at when it comes to how many sales have there been of that particular card. If there's multiple sales within a year, it's okay to pass. It's okay to wait because there's a high likelihood that card's going to come to market again within the year. And you don't want to be a prisoner of that moment going, oh my gosh, now everybody's going to start holding these and I better spend and bid. And you get about 2 or 3 people thinking that same way. And that card's going to go for a massive amount of money, right? Yep. I don't know if these buy it nows with some of these cards, the Favre 24 karat gold and that Peyton Manning PMG PSA 10. I don't know if that was one of those, hey, I just need to get this because, I worry about that sentiment. I don't know if that's a healthy place to be. Feeling like you better get it. If you don't get it, you're never going to see it again kind of mentality. I just think if there's 100 cards, serial number to 100, and you see quite a few sales, I just wait. You might be able to even get a better copy at a better price. You never know. Because sometimes there's moments where people, if there's anything I would caution against, is that when it comes to like where the 90s market is going, is being mindful of how often these cards are popping up. And if they keep going for more, just know for a fact if that card has another new high, someone else is going to probably list that copy of that card now. And then you're going to have another opportunity. And you'll likely get it for less than the last person because you have a lot of people participating and overpaying for it. Exactly. This is great conversation, Drake. I have to head off and do another presentation at school here, so I'm gonna wrap us up. I think that was a pretty fast and quick episode, but it was a really, really good one. It was packed with a lot of fun conversations about 90s cards, which Drake and I just love. You may not love it, so I apologize if you're getting tired of us talking about 90s. Maybe we'll try to take a turn in a different direction for some of these newer episodes and talk about more of the broader hobby, because there's nothing wrong with that too. And I think we've been hyper focused on 90s. So I apologize to anybody out there who's been like, oh my gosh, will you guys stop talking about these cards? We'll try to switch it up a little bit more and have a more broader conversation about the hobby in our next few episodes. But everybody have a great rest of your week. Enjoy Labor Day weekend, your last bit of summer before all the kids go back to school and everything. You get back into gear and getting ready for the fall. We love and enjoy talking about cards with you. Throw a comment and anything down below. Let's have a discussion about the stuff we talked about today. If you want to, we're happy to have it. Do you use UPS or USPS or do you use FedEx? I mean, talk about that. Are you into 90s cards? Do you feel like it's a bubble? Do you feel like it's hyped up and it's a pump? Or do you feel like it's a healthy place and a flight to quality right now? Let us know in the comments below. Have a great rest of your week. Great Labor Day weekend. Subscribe, like, collect. Love you. Take care.